plugged in, ready to go to here, right? I always forget what it is too.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave, you can bring that chair up front, and you and Katie are wanting to spread out a little bit.
Yes.
Whatever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, all right.
Got spots all over.
I'm your guest, you know where to sit.
Wherever you
Okay, do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, do I ever hear a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Aye.
Any discussion?
Wait, you said you had?
Aye,
did.
favor.
Thank you.
Okay. Vote. Motion passed 7-0. There's no student recognition, okay. Concerns of UST 244 Burlington patrons. That's all right. Pastor Hill, come on up, maybe over here.
I'm so confused.
So are we.
We are too.
I just want to commend a couple of your staff members. We got in a bind, but Mr. Jones got in a bind until last week. It was over 90 degrees. We had a bunch of frozen food came in, and our normal place of storage wasn't available. And so I called Mr. Marsh on Sunday. In fact, I didn't call him on Sunday, but I called him on Sunday. We're in a bind. Can you help us? The next call I got was from Margarito, and said we'll take care of it. And then I talked to Diana, and between the two, and it was inconvenient. The times were inconvenient to them. So I appreciate them coming out with smiles on their faces. We took care of all of our frozen food. We took care of it. Twice actually had to get it into the freezer, but they were very helpful. So I just commend having staff members at the drop of a hat, stuff is way out of their normal boundaries, and step in and help us. So I just want to say
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I saw this month we're doing a food drive here. Staff has been challenged, and then if they bring food in, then they're entering into a drawing for a free day off, and I can't imagine why anybody would want
that. How much do you have to bring to get a day off?
Well, hopefully they'll bring a sack load.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're having a food drive this
Well,
week.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, written items, I think there were some things added today.
Right, yeah, and we just did add one from the American Heart Association. Today, we just got it, so we went ahead and we put that on. And I'm going to read this. It just says, Dear Burlington Community Schools, as the American Heart Association representative for the Burlington Community School District, it's my privilege to acknowledge and show our appreciation to Ms. Julie Augustine and the students at Burlington Middle School, Kathy Freeman, the students at the Burlington Elementary School, and Donna Boland and the students at Burlington High School. And it just goes on to talk a little bit about what they did. I'm going to pull that up there. If you want to scroll down a little bit. I could read through the whole thing, but I'm going to just take a couple of the high points. Ms. Augustine and Ms. Freeman challenged students to take one of the three challenges to one, either exercise 60 minutes a day, two, be prepared and ready for each day, obviously for physical activity, or do a good deed every day. And so, you know, those are all, again, well-rounded students, well-rounded individuals, community members, positive things for kids to emphasize. And then, in addition, Ms. Boland championed an anti-vaping awareness campaign at the high school to teach students about the dangers of vaping. So, again, I'm not going to read through the rest of that, but greatly appreciate those people and the efforts that they put forth to try to help just people be better. So, anyway.
And we received one other today from Darla Dees and her family. She wanted to thank the board for the plan that was sent on behalf of the Denver Law.
Okay, administrative reports. Does it, anybody that's already reported want to add anything? Is it, maybe have questions from their report? So, Doug, do you want to,
You bet. I'm checking on the stream real quick, so.
Okay.
Has Lindsay done hers?
I can go.
oh, okay, Lindsay, you're up.
I don't know if you have questions, you can let me know. Challenge or successes was COVID-19, challenges was COVID-19. No, we had a good year. We had first successful year of the 18 to 21 program in 2 normal sized rooms, all above ground. And everybody's making it, doing just fine. We have some kids that might be transitioning on, which is, even though we hate to lose them, that's the purpose of the program, so that's a huge success. If that happens, if not, we'll have them back, and that's okay. Some of that pertains to age more than it does their willing and readiness, so, but we worked through all of those. We were 100% compliant in everything last year. I met MOE. I don't have my list to go off of, so it's okay. Challenges, staffing is always a continuing challenge. I mean, we talk about that every month when I'm here in terms of, you know, how many openings do you have now and all of that. I will say, looking forward to next year, right now, we don't have a huge number of openings. I mean, it's a manageable number now. So hopefully that will continue to play out. I also addressed training time and professional development. We front load some time, but sometimes we run out of time at the beginning of the year. We have so many mandated trainings and things that we're trying to do, and there's just not enough time. And that includes those new hires that come on during the year. And then we had some teacher licensure issues last year with, well, one in particular. We had one this year too. Didn't have near the fight we had to last year. We were lucky enough to be able to fill pretty, and I mean, we had opened it up to applicants, but we had some in-house movement that was able to fill that and not create other voids. So that worked out, and I don't know what this future is going to hold come August, but we had some kids with pretty significant behaviors before they got all this time at home. And now they've had extra time out of routine, out of system, and so I just think, you know, that's going to be a challenge going forward, is getting everybody reacclimated to procedures and expectations and that stuff. But we'll put our work boots on and get going, so. Do you have any questions? Concerns?
I think if you take a look at the, first of all, any questions on my part of the report? And I want to take a second to thank the staff I get a chance to work with in terms of our tech staff, their ability to jump in over the 3-month period of time. It wasn't just about getting the devices ready. And we found out who were our 5 a.m. teachers. I'm going to tell you, we had the first shift, we had the second shift, and we had a third shift. And the whole thing is they needed tech support on whatever shift they were on. And it was 7 days a week sometimes. So we talked about that, but that's what we needed. That's where our kids were at that point in time. So it wasn't uncommon for me to jump in and say, hey, can so-and-so go to such and such? I mean, some of them could have just sat back and said, I'm going to stay home and get paid. And they were like, hey, whatever we need to do, we'll do. Check-in, if you heard about the Emporia bed bug and roach fiasco, they were checking in laptops and they were just dropping them off, and next thing you know, they had bed bugs and roaches inside those laptops for you to check back in. So people kind of thought we were a little over the top, but I wasn't about to take a chance with one of my staff people. And so they sat for 5 days in those bags that we tied up, and then we went into the steam room and we started cleaning. So these laptops will be as clean as ever. They got the COVID clean, and now they're getting another clean, they'll get one more clean before we put them on the cart. So, but the whole thing is, I can tell you, there were no bed bugs and there were no roaches. The other thing is, our administrators throughout this process, you know, kept supporting us, kept praising, but more importantly, here in this last process, we were freaked out at Tuesday afternoon, at about 2 o'clock, we still had 100 devices out. And so it was like the old Jerry Lewis Labor Day telephone, except we were making the phone calls. Hey, have you forgot about us? Hey, we need to see you, yada, yada. Got it down to 30 laptops, and then we turned it over to the enforcement crews. Darla won. Her last one showed up from Joplin today. Stacy wins the award for the furthest sent-in device, which was, where?
Idaho.
From Idaho, from that standpoint. Matt finished a close second, is blaming me because I didn't tell him that Darla was so close from that standpoint. He just looked over and said, great, now she wins, thanks for letting me know. So if you don't think they're competitive, you know, they are. The second thing is, you know, there's been talk about consistency in the interface. And even though you may not have seen it, and it is hard, if you've got a second grade teacher, a second grade student who's using iPads, that kid's gonna look somewhat different than a fifth grade kid that's using a laptop, than a senior in high school that may be doing some very advanced type things and doing online learning there. I mean, that consistency, and so, you know, we did, and kind of right off the bat, there were certain things we talked about. We talked about using Microsoft Teams, no Google Classroom. We talked about using Starleaf and why, as opposed to Zooms. And I'm not saying there weren't a few Zooms out there, but they weren't school-sponsored Zooms from that standpoint. We talked about doing some things in YouTube that we had never done before. We took to video like we hadn't before, just so that people could see our kids. We took to Facebook groups so that they could see their teachers. Kids needed that, to see that they were there and have that weekly reassurance. The coaches did the same thing. Our YouTube channel took off huge from that standpoint, and so we appreciate a lot of people doing that. I have a nephew who graduated from Augusta High School, was a senior this year, and I'll never forget, I saw a post from my sister, and it said, how do you find out if your kid got a scholarship, or got a senior scholarship this year? And they said, oh, the administration sent letters to those that won. And that's how, and so, like, right off the bat, I'm like, well, I guess my nephew didn't win a scholarship. You know, I mean, but not only that, they didn't recognize those kids. And Augusta's not that much larger than us. I mean, we recognized every kid that night from that standpoint, in addition to all the scholarships, which are tremendous when I look here compared to where my nieces and nephews have gone to school. So the whole thing is, we've done some things different. I'm not saying we did it better, but we did it our way. And so I'm really proud of that, for how people stepped up to do those different things. We didn't think we'd get a chance to do summer classes, summer tech, just because of the environment. We wanted to do some Allen County stuff because we had some teachers that were needing it. We couldn't really make that work this summer for several different reasons. Partly it was Allen County, partly it was just us with some of the things we wanted to do. We are doing $12,000 worth of training in the month of June and July, which is our biggest summer ever, from that Jones Trust grant that several of you that have been around a few years know about, that we wrote for technology training. We've got 20 staff members that are going to do our cadre model of training on Microsoft Teams. So they'll be together for a day for 6 hours, they'll work on their own for 9 hours, and then we'll set another day where they come back together, show and tell, and share with them things that they discovered that would be good for the 20 teachers in the group. And the teachers had to apply to be part of that, so all 20 of these teachers apply. We have 20 teachers that are going to do a one-day new line training. We've got 3 second grade teachers that we are expanding the iPad one-to-one model down to the second grade this year. And so they're going to go through the cadre training. And then we've got our 3 sixth grade teachers that are going to go through our laptop cadre. And then we've got 4 vocational teachers, including 2 brand new ones, that are going to go through that training. So it's like $12,600 is what we approved today. And so I'm really excited about that we're continuing to push and develop those models that will work if we find ourselves in some kind of a COVID-20 or whatever it might be. Okay? So that's what we've got going there. Our challenges is just to keep doing what we're doing. We've got some challenges still with homes that don't have internet access. About another month, and right now our vendor's being great to us, but within a month or two, that tower out at Jacobs Creek is gonna head out. I'm not saying we wouldn't bring it back for something like this, but remember that was a partnership between all the county entities on Coffee Can and the county commission. They made that partnership work to put that tower out there, to put public internet access from that standpoint. I'm working hard with Randall Brown, Russell Stuckey, Brad Scheidmeyer, and a couple of vendors. We're trying to figure out a way to get a tower there, because that's the whole point. They're so sunken in that area, and there's just not enough to justify a cost basis to go build a tower. So we've got to figure out something, and we've got a couple of ideas. We've talked to the Corps of Engineers, we're doing some other talk, but we really want to get something out there that will serve our kids there. At that point, our last area that doesn't have a close level of service will be our kids that are counted out in the country around the Aliceville area from that standpoint. We had about 10 families take us up on the T-Mobile hotspot. As you know, T-Mobile merged with Sprint, so all of a sudden their network grew, and now they've got pretty much full coverage in the county with the exception of the Lebo area. And it's not total coverage, but it is pretty solid coverage. Of the 10 T-Mobile spots that we had, people ask, why T-Mobile? And the reason is we have to provide, if the school is involved, we have to provide filtered internet service. And at that point, US Cellular and Verizon didn't have that piece. Since then, both companies have come on board with that. But we've got to help families find ways, because again, even when we're not in COVID, can you imagine not having that tool in the home for kids in today's learning environment? And so right now, we're still sitting at 15%. Based on the last survey we did, 15% of the families that filled out our rushed survey said they still did not have adequate home internet from that standpoint, whether it was financially or whether it was you just couldn't get the service there. So that's a big challenge for us. Other questions?
Thank you. Any other? Charlie, do you want to talk? Hide behind the pole.
No.
All right. Craig, you're up.
Okay. We have Clark Simpson on Star Leaf here, and I've asked Clark to join us tonight just to share some information on the first grade wing remodel as well as the baseball, softball, concession stand project. So Clark, I guess I'll let you start, and if anybody has questions, you can, you and I together can field these. And Clark, he comes in as far as, be a Star Leaf on the evenings, but we talk early in the morning and even late at night sometimes, and I greatly appreciate his service to us on these different projects that we've got going on, past and now present. So Clark, you're up.
The first grade elementary remodel is really coming right along. We'll have a progress construction meeting in the morning. They have the walls pretty well framed, and they're starting to get drywall up. They're getting all the devices and all the wiring and all the stuff that goes above the ceilings and kind of behind the walls is getting roughed in. They're expecting, if all goes well, to come 1st of July, the casework will show up. And if that happens, then everything hopefully will fall into place to try to get finishes in and to wrap up essentially the first part of August so that they're ready for the start of school. And that's provided we don't have any hiccups with delivery on stuff that's in production right now. And really, it's, other than we've had we've had really quite a bit of additional things that we hadn't perceived needing to do as we get in and have gotten into it. There were a number of items that we found in the building that we brought to Craig's attention that we didn't feel comfortable in just ignoring, that they were really safety issues for the long-term life of the building. There were some items that will actually help bring the building up to current standards and hopefully alleviate any issues down the road. And I think most all of those, I think, have been addressed. There may be a few in the stuff that Craig brought to you tonight. I'm not sure what sequence things have come in. Are there any questions about what's going on at the elementary?
We've just had, we've had the few change orders because, again, part of it is because of the age of the building. Part of it's also because of when they do open up the building, you can see so much better. And what actually is going on when you take a flashlight up above a drop ceiling and you're trying to, look and see and observe things, it's kind of hard when you're doing the pre-bid type scenario. And that's why I kept you abreast about all the change orders as time's gone on. The different, and just they've been typically been smaller change order type situations, but just like, for example, the one that I think the most recent one is a breaker box that was an overload situation. That could have potentially been a very dangerous fire hazard scenario where we had a breaker box that was overloaded. That's being taken care of, and I appreciate Clark as well as the other guys on site. When they see something, they just don't look at the plans and just move on. They see something, if they see it, evaluate it, and know that it needs to be taken care of, they bring it to our attention to have us to try to address it. So anyway, we're just taking care of those projects again for the long-term life of the building. So, and then tomorrow, I'll let you kind of speak tomorrow. We do have bid openings for the baseball, softball, restrooms.
We'll take bids tomorrow afternoon on the concession restroom building there at the ball fields. I'm hoping right now we have about 13 contractors that could potentially bid on it. I've got 6 that I know are looking at it real hard because I spent the afternoon answering questions, or at least answering phone calls about stuff on the job. So we hopefully will get a pretty good range of bids if they all turn bids in tomorrow afternoon. There's, like I say, I've been real pleased with the number of local vendors that are looking at it. There's a couple that I thought could have maybe bidded as a general, but I've talked with in the last couple of days, and they elected to bid actually as a sub with the idea that they have a better shot at getting the work than trying to do it all themselves. And they're selecting certain portions of the work, which again, I think is good for the folks locally, but it's also good for the district to diversify who all can participate in the project.
And we do, tomorrow, like I say, with the bid openings, we do have, actually Clark's gonna be here for most all the day because we have the elementary, the renovation, first grade wing renovation meeting at 9. We have a meeting at 11:30. I'm trying to remember where.
We have a pre-construction meeting. They're gonna start the roof. I was hoping it'd be by the end of next week, but I think it'll be the following Monday,
Right.
Essentially, that they're planning on moving in to get the roof redone there at the high school.
That'll be the high school roof
Portion
project.
that's set to be worked on this summer.
And then at 2 o'clock, we have a bid opening here that Clark will be here
Yeah.
for, so, yes. Questions on baseball, softball, restroom? I know you may have more questions, obviously, as we get bids, and hopefully, it may require us to have a special meeting to get the approval piece so that they can get going. So Clark and I will be looking at those proposals, and I'll have some information with you on Friday notes in my email to you guys through board docs about how things came out. Maybe even sooner. I might not be able. I may have a midweek update, so may get lucky there. So anyway, anything else for Clark?
Just so the sewer for the bathrooms, where does that have to go?
Well, there are 2 potential options. Right now, we're hoping to be able to take it to the bus barn. I was trying to think of the name of the building that's there to the west, but there is the sewers where the current restrooms are at. They have a clean out on the north side of that building. And our intent is to try to tie into that sewer at that location. Because we didn't know at the time, because we found out about our sewer connection just a day or 2 before we got this out to the contractors, that is one option. The other option is to take the sewer and go essentially around the east side of the football field and tie into a sewage ejector or a sewage pump south of the football field, where they're pumping the waste to the street to the south. And that's not once I know, they just left me.
Goes to Cross Street, yes.
Yeah, because the sewer line, there is not a sewer that runs north and south on the road to the west of the ball fields. And so we're having to go all the way down to Cross Street to tie into sewer. And we think, at least from what we have looked at, trying to examine the documents, that we'll be able to go and tie in on the north of the bus barn. However, I've got an allowance on our bids because we didn't know how many fixtures were in the restroom facilities in the bus barn, and there's a chance that we may have to upsize the sewage pump that's on the south side of that building because of the additional fixtures that we're adding. Now, the engineers didn't think it was necessary because you have more fixtures, but you don't have any more people using fixtures than what you had before. The idea is, by code, if everybody would flush spills at the same time, that creates more of a burden than if they're used in sequence. And so they will have to do some looking at that once we determine that the size of the pump that's on the south of the bus barn.
So we have a lift station from the bus barn to
You know,
behind the stadium?
there, my understanding that it pumps to south of the football field to another lift station that in turn pumps to Cross Street.
Right, so is the one behind the football stadium, to the south of the football stadium, the one that we have trouble with already?
It's the one that we need to, I'm working with Margarito and Doug Orr to try to get it to be automated, because basically Margarito or Doug has to go and instead of having like a float, for example, think in terms of a sump pump. A float, basement water and sump pump gets to a point and it just ejects the water out away from the house. That's the same thing that would apply with this pump. Margarito has to manually operate the pump, or Doug has to manually operate the pump.
So we have a septic tank down there that he then, when the light comes on, he has to go empty?
Yeah, so if we have a home football game, for example, he goes there and manually operates the pump twice a night, so to speak, just to make sure we don't have issues. I want that to be manual. I want that to be automated, not manual, because heaven forbid he gets called doing something else and he forgets, and we've got 1,000 people at the football game and we've got some bad stuff. So we're working on that, and we're going to get that pump system brought up to automated.
About running anything further down that road?
So there's no sewage at all on that north-south road?
No.
Nothing?
As a city, they wouldn't run something?
Well, I think that'd be huge dollars and cents. That's basically kind of what, as far as for them right now. Yeah, on that, I think that road is Links Road.
Yeah.
Links Road that runs north and south. It would be just to the west of our fenced-in area of the bus barn.
So all the houses out there are all on lagoons?
That's what I'm
Family
assuming.
houses.
There's not that many.
Well, there's north of the road, there's 2 or 3 houses, and then on the
Yeah,
south
they're
side
all
of,
lagoon.
they must all have lagoons.
So, anyway.
Yep. The
and-
house just east of the ball field is on a lagoon, because we were able to see that by the satellite when we were trying to figure out what to do, what direction to go.
So what kind of pipe do we have that goes from the bus barn to our second lift station, the one that then pumps to Cross Street? Do we know any of that?
I am not sure what that is.
We haven't seen any?
I don't know. I'm gonna say probably, since that was the 1979 build, I'm gonna say it's probably, I don't know if it's PVC or not. I think
The
it,
bus barn was in 79?
well, the bus barn was 93, I think,
Yeah.
93 for the bus barn. The high school, middle school were built in 79. So I don't know if the piping is there. I don't know if it'd be cast iron, I would think not.
Well, if the bus barn, so the football field was there before the bus barn,
That's-
Yes,
Charlie?
yes.
I think so.
The stadium, yes.
So we had the pump behind the football field there, or did that come at the same time the bus barn was there? Because is that a high point? That's the only way to get around the buildings? That we had to go that way? Why is the sump pump right behind, instead of if we're the bus barn and we had to go to Cross Street, why didn't we just go straight to Cross Street?
The stadium was before the bus barn. Stadium,
Yeah.
first use was in '89.
Were there bathrooms somewhere that we
I
had to
don't
put the
recall a
sump
bathroom.
behind the stadium?
See, I don't think there were restrooms. I don't know if they just used the restrooms
That-
maybe in the high school, I don't know. But I know, again, stadium was first in '89, bus barn was '93.
But I don't
If
recall
I
that.
remember
I think you had to go to the high
That
school.
sump had to be
bathroom.
there because that's why they went to it to get to Cross Street.
That's where the
It was a
concession.
shorter route.
They had to walk to the school to the bathroom from the,
That's what you had to do before the bus barn?
yes.
I was pretty young.
That was a
I wasn't back. I wasn't here. I'm just curious, you know, we have two lift stations. We're lifting from the bus barn to, and how much of the bus barn, like water for washing the buses and all that, does that all go into that same sump system and go through that, all that?
I would say yes. And they do have two restrooms inside the bus barn. And then, of course, you have the restroom facilities by the concession stand for the football field and the track. So, anyway.
Any water for washing buses will actually go through a mud and grease interceptor before it goes into that system. To make sure there is no
Yeah.
debris going down, it will be just water. Or it should be that way anyhow.
Well, as a group, we have to make that second
Right.
lift station more functional than having a guy come every 2 days
Right.
or twice a night to turning it on and off. I mean, that has to be part of our, no matter what else we do. I mean, I'm not sure lift stations have been automated for a lot longer than,
So with this project, in my mind, what's gonna happen is I do think we'll get automated there because again, there'll be a connection from the restroom concessions facility that we are going to build to the bus barn, and then that from there, I want that piece to be upgraded as well, in my mind. I want that to be looked at to make sure it is fully automated. We need to make sure that we're not relying on somebody to do it. And Margarito's terrific, Doug Rohr's terrific, but they do get busy and they may not be able to be there to push a button to start it. So we're going to make sure, we're going to work on that, and hopefully that, like Clark is talking about, hopefully we get that piece, again, that's built in. I mean, part of that is the project that we have.
Yeah, what I've done is, because we didn't know the details of what was there yet, I put an allowance to hopefully cover the cost to upgrade the lift station. But that was to give us a little room so that we won't have a huge change order, but we, again, might have something if this gets into more than I imagined it being. And the allowance is kind of based on here, last summer, I actually replaced a lift station at Wichita County High School. And they have in their basement, in their locker rooms, they had a lift station that was actually buried underneath the floor that was taking out all the waste and all essentially all the showers in that locker rooms that we ended up doing last summer. And we also replaced a couple of hot water heaters and that as part of that project, and that ran about $64,000. And I've budgeted, I'm trying to remember, but I think I put a $40,000 or $45,000 allowance for the lift station.
That's part of the project, hopefully, that will be.
Yeah, that's part of the
That's what we're hoping, yeah. That's built into the actual project, the base. And again, some people have asked me a question too, again, architects, as you can tell, Clark, earns his money, because he's dealing with lift stations, he's dealing with a site and land development piece, he's dealing with elevations, he's dealing with ADA compliance, he's dealing with fire marshal codes, because we can't just put a metal building, you know, it's not like me building a building, or you guys building a building, you can kind of do what you want to do. We gotta make sure it's compliant with us through the school system, if we're gonna have kids, adults in that building, and so that's why he has that task of making sure that our best interests are represented. Any other questions for Clark?
What, on the whole grade of that, when it comes off of that, where we're planning on putting that building, is there enough grade from there to the bus barn to make it easily from, or haven't you noticed?
Well.
There is to go all the way on the other side of the,
There's really about a 3-foot drop from where the building will set to the bus barn. The problem I've got is I don't know where the elevation is of the connection, where the clean out, I know where it comes up, but I don't know what depth it comes out of the building. And so that's gonna be and that's part of the reason we have the allowance too, is for dealing with that issue once we get it uncovered. And I'm hoping once we get our contractor on board and they have assigned essentially a plumbing contractor, that they'll actually maybe be able to come back and say, you know, it's maybe further, but it might be more efficient for us to bypass going to the bus barn and go around the west side of the football field down to the other lift station. We felt like it was less pipe, so in theory should be less money to go towards the bus barn.
they'd have to go on the east side of the football field, right?
Yeah, they would have to go on the east side, because we don't, well.
When you
and
go
again,
through all that
I made
concrete.
an assumption that I probably shouldn't, but I don't think you want them going underneath the field, because from what I understand, it's almost due south of where the building will be at. So they'll need to go to the east and go outside the track area, sort of underneath either, and whether we go underneath the bleachers or behind the bleachers, but we were trying to kind of pick, and again, this is once we have a contractor on board, they can say, you know, I can tear out 20 feet of sidewalk cheaper than I can go an extra 30 feet around something and replace it. And so we'll find the most efficient way to run it and put it in, so that we aren't spending unnecessary dollars to get it done.
In our entire school, all our property is in city limits?
That's a good question. I would say yes.
Can we use a septic drain field or a lagoon? If part of it isn't within the city limits?
See, I don't think we do, because we had the meeting with a number of us, the city officials were there, county, no county, it would be Danny Hawkins, I'm trying to think of who else was there, Scott Jeffers, Dave, myself, Doug Rohr, Margarito Solano. We were there, and that did not even come up because we were all within the city. We were all within the city boundary, so that's not an option.
If we're within city limits, right, we have to use city sewer. But the house to the east, like he was saying, is on a lagoon, and that's even with our property.
Yeah.
Grandfather.
But they could be grandfathered.
Yeah.
Burlington line goes up, and now it's even got the field north of us. They annexed that part too, so it goes up right along our middle school driveway by the Stukeys,
Yeah.
going north. That's the city line.
Yeah, so
That's where it gets
we're all in
field
the
on
city
side.
limits.
Yeah.
All right,
Clark, thank you for your time. We'll let you sign off, and we'll see you bright and early here tomorrow.
Yep, I'll be
All right.
there sometime around 9 o'clock in the morning.
I'll see you. Thank you.
So, yeah.
I'm going to go to the PowerPoint, the facility improvements. We've had a lot of different things going on, obviously, with facility improvements. I've kept you guys abreast of everything. There's some pictures that you guys have seen, and also, again, for those in attendance, you guys can see what's happening. When you see the first couple of pictures there, if you go to go ahead, yes, the next one. Our walls aren't going to be blue, but that's just a special reinforced sheetrock that we have in those classrooms, so if it gets dinged or popped, it's going to be less likely to have, you know, bars or scars or whatever. So you can see that they are after the framing, the insulation piece on the walls, the support beams there in the middle for hanging things like whiteboards and so on and so forth, and different things. You can see that wood framing running parallel with the floor. If you go to the next picture, you'll just see some more areas there that they're just getting after with the again, the framing and the sheetrocking. The project's just taking shape. The picture there would be on the right. That's actually a picture of part of the nurse's office, and it's going to be so, and especially now with COVID-19, we didn't expect to. We actually have, when we were at, the June 1 meeting that Stacy and James attended, one of the suggestions is to have a plan for areas for kids that do not feel well, so just don't set them in the office and wait for mom or dad to come pick them up. In our nurse's office, you can see that area back behind is kind of could be let's say a hearing vision check area. It could be a place, again, to have for your kids if they're not well, separate from the main area that you can see there, which would be the nurse's office. And then kind of just along the wall there where that window is back there where there's a restroom facility in the nurse's office, which we didn't have there at the elementary. So that nurse's office area is going to be so much better, so much more healthy, and so much more private for issues that we have. So
Where is that at?
that's going to be, let me think here. So you enter off of the Hug and Go here, the restrooms, where the restrooms were in the first grade wing. It's the first room right next to the restroom. Still 21st century room. Yeah, thank you very much. So
That's where
it's
she's at. Ooh, that's good.
yes, and it's right there by the
I mean,
playground.
they changed all those, yeah, I mean, it's in the location where the.
Where the
routine
21st
was,
century
but
room was.
It's a little, different the
Yep.
way it's, I mean, it's not that whole space because it's really
Right.
sectioned off. But yeah, she's in that first slot after the bathrooms.
Oh, yeah.
And if you
They
look-
should be happy with that.
And if you look at the next picture there, and I think it was one picture kind of duplicated, but the picture on the right there is actually where the restrooms, we're going to have sinks outside in the hallway, which is even a better thing, for us with COVID-19 type scenarios. We're going to have staff watching kids wash their hands. They're just not going to say, run my hands through and they're gone. They're going to actually, hey, it can be a teaching thing. It can be hey, just make sure you spend 20 seconds, you sing, the alphabet, national anthem, whatever, who knows. So, whatever. I've seen some places where baseball players are encouraging kids to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" instead of washing your hands. So anyway, you can see the piping there is going to be outside in the hallway, so the kids will be washing their hands inside of the teachers. So that'll be good as well. The epoxy floor project, oh wow, it just sets off the staff lounge. It'll be also for the cafeteria there at the elementary school. This will not only be better for students and staff, but it'll also be better for our custodians cleaning. These floors are so much easier to clean. You're not dealing with carpet, you're not dealing with old flooring and so on and so forth, where it just seems like you never can really get it clean. So it's really nice. Continuing on, the flagpole area at the elementary school was getting rid of all of that gravel, that pea gravel, which was almost like roller skating on ice. The kids would run over there and it's a little scary. There was a bunch of pea gravel there. If you remember where those trees were, trees got removed, got rid of that pea gravel, and now it's all swept up and clean. It just looks very, very, I'd just say very classy. So, and we maybe have some picnic benches there in the future for some people to have around there, and there's some shade trees there that are kind of nice too.
I was gonna say, I was just gonna ask if we're gonna do anything else with it, because it just kinda looks like.
Yeah, we're gonna add,
Institutional.
yeah, it
It's a little
does.
sterile.
It was,
It doesn't
yeah.
look like an elementary school.
Right.
It needs
Take
more
all your
color.
good.
Just wait till the kickball game gets out there. That's where kickball happens.
The kids
right
love that
Right.
area
Oh,
for
yeah,
playground too.
because
I
they
mean,
make it bases.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's
That is,
true.
that's right where their kickball game is.
So-
Yeah, that's fun.
So we will probably do some benches and things like that to make it a little bit more park-like.
I'm getting away with it.
Next couple pictures are middle school parking lot expansion. We've added spaces there, if you've seen that on the southeast corner. Also, again, moving the parking lot a little closer to that'd be the east side of the building. That's gonna make that area so much nicer for games and events. And buses and just normal drop-off, as far as the drop-off and pickup at
It's
the end
always
of the
been a
day.
problem.
It's just been a bottleneck, so that was a really good idea Doug Rohr had. And that way the cars will park a little bit closer to the building, so pulling out and pulling in, it'll be much safer, and as well as with events, because we have so many events there, obviously, in that side of the building. So, and we added a few spaces there. It would be to the southeast corner there, which, by that little tree there, so very helpful. Some more epoxy flooring there, again, nurse's office at the middle school, got rid of some very old dingy carpet there, and that epoxy floor just looks so nice. The science room, Mrs. Garner's 6th grade science room, if you go to the next one, it's Mrs. Engel's 5th grade. They wanted, science rooms wanted epoxy flooring for just some different experiments they do and things like that, so very, very nice. And then the epoxy flooring at the high school nurse's office, so Nurse Lori and Julie Bull are gonna be thrilled. They're gonna get some really nice flooring and painted. We're gonna, again, we painted in the nurse's office at the middle school, we painted in the nurse's office at the high school, and again, the staff lounge. So this hopefully, again, will help with cleaning at nights, and you know, again, the carpet in the staff lounge and the kitchen area is just not very good to have at all, so very, very nice. And then the activity entrance, concrete work, that concrete was, it had divots, it had some real nasty crater spots that were just not very safe to walk on, to twist an ankle, or people weren't careful. You know, it was just kind of unsafe, but that whole entry there is nice. And that area, that handicap accessibility opening there is gonna be better for, again, people, as well as if we have to pull a truck up to drop off certain things, it's a little wider there. And then some pictures from our downtown board office remodel. You can see some pictures there that just absolutely, yes, that they, and again, with this project, all the contractor work has been local contractors. We've had Victory Excavation, Mike Skillman has been terrific, Roger Hess, Dustin Allen with flooring, and those people there, Creighton Cox with electrical, Ron Strotter with the kitchen and cabinet work, Burlington Construction with concrete work in the basement. The local vendors have just been out of this world for us and terrific. So you can see the areas there as you walk in. That would have been where the city hall would have their board meetings, their city council meetings there. We've created office space for Misty and Cindy.
I think it looks brown, but it's gray.
Yeah, it's gray on the pictures. Yeah, it's kind of a, it's called weathered teak is the paint, and so anyway.
Almost school gray.
And then there's just a couple office areas.
Your room's purple,
Yeah, a couple office areas that we have there for Doug,
your office.
Doug Vanderlyn and Margarito. And then the next one there, a couple of office areas there. And again, the pictures, again, are just, I say just of the office areas.
When are you moving?
We are hoping that we're gonna be able to move the first week in July, after that first full week in July. We're waiting on the internet connectivity and the network connectivity piece to happen, and once we do, we'll be in good shape and ready to do this. We want to get through the busiest part of our year in the central office. So,
That's good. It is awesome.
Yes.
You haven't been. Yeah.
and the
very
kitchen, Ron Strider, not quite done there, but again, he's done doing the cabinet work, and it is really nice in that kitchen area. We have a small conference room there where their kitchen was, and then the board office, which is in that, there's a set of windows there that face to the north off of downtown. And so we've created a nice area there, not only for board meetings, but also for training purposes, for technology or whatever the case might be. We've got a good setup there with some, instead of having the projector screen here, we'll have one new line touch panel for Doug to be able to do his teaching cadre with our people that come down there to the board office for training, for technology training, and then we'll also have just a plain monitor for the viewing public so they can look at the agenda, similar to what we have here. So instead of having one screen, we'll have two different monitor viewing type options. So, and then back in, which was where they had child advocacy services, where they use the city police department as well as the sheriff's department, use these for interview rooms. This is where Christy and Lindsay will be. Back there for their offices, for special education offices. And then we've added a couple of restrooms where there was a storage room, basically put a wall in between, and created two restrooms there in the central part of the building. So it really has turned out well. Questions on any of the projects? I know I've kept you guys informed with what's going on. Again, just fortunate the city was willing to donate the building to us, and we can, again, hopefully we're gonna get some good news here, 1st of July on our daycare possibility, as well as, again, just being ready to move in there. We have to start working on a project here. It was so key, the timing was very, very important, so. I'm gonna skip down to number 5, the SRO proposal. This is something that other school districts in the county, 243 and 245, are looking at tonight. Randy Rogers presented this to us as a possibility to look to add an SRO. So basically what the breakdown would be, the 243 and 245 would have an SRO shared between those two. And Burlington 244 would have our own SRO. I shared with you this proposal, and we don't need to take a vote on this or a decision, because it's really going to be a joint decision process with all 3 school districts, because again, let's say 243 and 245 decide that really, okay, we don't have a need for an SRO, then that's going to change the dynamic of what Randy's proposal would be for us. This proposal is in place if all 3 of us decide to go in that direction with 243 and 245 splitting an SRO and us having our own. So again, this will give you some time to think about it, look over the proposal, and then we can, I'm going to have a chance to talk with Russ Millward and Corey Reese to see what their boards are thinking after they have some time to digest the information. Again, I'm going to show you what, just go through a couple of the highlighted areas. That's a $28,250 per year additional expense for us to have our own SRO. The SRO would be on duty for 40 hours a week. There would be...
Is this the stuff you sent out to us?
Yes, it's in the attachment to, well, actually it's in the attachment with the board meeting here. Let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else I highlighted here. The SRO would have an office in a facility so that they could, you know, visit with kids if needed, if there was a need for that to happen, if there was an interview or possibly counseling or a parent meeting with them, with parents and kids. It would allow just them to have an office area in one of the buildings. And I think that those were the biggies that I saw here without going through every piece of this. So,
Do we have a, like, last year, what was the estimated amount of time that the SR was in our schools?
you know, you guys, I think you might be able to
Very
mention that.
often, weekly, daily, monthly?
Probably not really.
I would say sometimes it varied
Yes.
at times. Sometimes,
Only when we called and needed them?
no, not at all. Sometimes Jess would pop in and she would walk around the classrooms and come in at lunchtime. I mean, I didn't really keep tallies of when she came in or not, but we definitely saw her on probably a weekly basis that she would come.
And if the SRO,
Yes, she
reports
did
are
pop
good.
in, and we saw her more than previous ones.
Yes.
But I don't think weekly.
I just think
about once
there
every 2
could be a
Once
benefit
every 2 weeks.
and a higher expectation of usage if we had our own. I
we-
just think nobody's.
Well, if we had our own right there, it says 40 hours a week, so
I
that would
think
be my
nobody's
expectation
really
for me.
touched that because they know that she's gotta go north and she's gotta go south, so nobody's really added like an
Currently, we don't pay
expectation
her.
onto that role, or I think it
And
was
our
ours.
really her boss, I mean.
Yeah, because
Right.
we're not, we don't pay her
Set
right
an
now.
expectation because you
Yes.
aren't her boss.
Yeah,
We paid before.
the
We've done it
SRO
with
is
grant.
through a grant, and
Yeah.
therefore we do not have any fees associated. The SRO, quite frankly, now is on as needed, on call type situation for us in 243 and 245. It's just if we have a situation arise, we call and connect, and hopefully she's available, Officer Deputy Stites. So that would be the difference. In the 40-hour scenario here, they would probably, I'm going to say again, spend time, maybe they come down and have lunch with kids at times at the elementary or middle school or high school. They would just be a presence within the framework of all 3 buildings, because again, they're going to have 40-hour weeks. In the summer, we wouldn't necessarily have a need, so the Sheriff's Department would employ that person during the summer. And so this is our commitment at $28,250 if we were to during the school year.
And so they're asking the other 2 schools to do the same amount, to split someone half and half, 20 hours in each district?
Correct, that their commitment would be, well, half of that.
Right, 14,000.
You got it.
But if I'm reading this, then you still don't have any control of them, because the Coffee County Sheriff's Office controls them
Correct.
totally.
That is
So
correct.
You may say, I want them in this building more or something,
Yep.
but they own them, they're gonna pay them, and they're gonna supervision, administration, control.
Right.
So,
It would still be their employee. Now, I think we would have some feedback and some say-so. Again, I think part of what we want to do now is we want to look at, again, have we have our administrative retreat Wednesday. We're gonna have a discussion about this and say, okay, does it make sense financially? I'll report back to you. Do we have a need? I mean, yeah, it would be, is it a need or is it a want? You have to kind of decide which one it is. And 243 and 245, we're gonna have to make that decision too. So those are some things we're gonna talk about on Wednesday at our retreat, so, yes.
Is the current police officers in our gymnasium, is that part of our SRO program? Is that something they do because of the program, or is that something they do because they're part of the community?
It's part of the, again, big events, they come and supervise.
I contact sheriff's office or PD when we have big events and say, can you have an officer here? If they're not on call, then they typically stop by, like the football game, one or two will.
So we're not paying anybody?
No, they're just,
Currently, we don't
if they're
pay
free,
anything.
they try to cover us when they can.
So what do we have, what do we consider the responsibility of our current SRO? What do we make them do?
I've
Or have them do?
Well, here's what,
Pay
again,
them
yeah,
anything.
I think to me, what that, it's an emergency type situation. So let's say there's a student issue at Burlington High School and they need help above and beyond administrative help. They're probably calling either police department or general officer side or deputy size.
So from the way I understand SROs in the world, an SRO is supposed to communicate with the school if there's something in the community that bad is going on, they're supposed to contact the school. And vice versa, if there's something bad in the school, we contact them and then they make the decision whether or not they bring in the police force or whatever maybe need to be called or destruct. Is that what our SRO does? And if so, why do they just randomly show up in the schools because we've asked them to?
Well,
We
again,
don't get to
So-
call our SRO directly. We're not authorized to do that. We have to call all of our calls through the sheriff's department or the program.
But would you
And-
have disagree?
So what's the point of having an SRO if you can't call
Are we
them?
the boss? I mean,
It doesn't say
Well,
your boss.
The other
we've been
part of
told
it
we can't
is-
call directly.
I may be the new guy, but I call her directly.
You're not supposed to, that's part of the.
you can use that the first
So
year.
that-
Yeah, you're
The
not
SRO
supposed to-
program has changed over time. Like, there have been years that we have, or years ago when I worked for school, we paid the SRO like this, and they were in the schools all day, every day, like at different, they would do programs or safety, or eat lunch with the kids, or be at the after-school program, or, I mean, they did.
That was a 40-hour-a-week job.
Yes.
The reason
We
that
had
they,
them full-time.
the reason that we try not to call directly, we try to go through dispatches so that they can log what events, what track, just track different events or different issues that happen to arise. So again, it's more, you asked what are the duties of the SRO, back to your original question. For us, it's truly an emergency type situation where we're calling somebody. And ideally, if we can get Deputy Sykes to come, because she does have a little bit of a connection more so than other law enforcement people, it's ideal. But she may be busy or she may be off that day, and if she is, then we're going to get somebody else.
Well, I guess I'm confused as why you can't call the SRO. That doesn't really make sense to me. That should be your contact.
Unless it's a 911
We don't
situation,
know.
yeah, you're gonna call dispatch, but if it was something else, I called her directly.
But we're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to, because we don't know their schedule, that's what, so a couple of SROs ago, I think everybody was calling directly, and it's like, you don't ever know their day off, you don't know where they're at, so, I mean,
So that,
we got an email that said we're not supposed to call directly.
So to me, that's, touches on like the most important point. If we're gonna have one that's 40 hours for us, it'd be best if it was one person for 40
Yeah, but-
hours so they could build.
but we can't call them. What's the point of having anybody for
But
40
if
hours?
Usually
would
we
change
have, I think
that.
this would make a
They
difference.
do usually
Well,
send out
it
just
doesn't
if she's
exist.
available, like if you
We
call,
would have to make some
dispatch,
changes.
So what do they do if they're not in our school building walking around? They act as the sheriff's department officer and serve warrants and do all that all day long?
Well, if you read the agreement, there are sometimes, for example, if a deputy, if our SRO who performs deputy type duties would have to be in court, then that's an okay thing, or a reason for them to be gone that day from work. With the situation where I think it would be different, if we had our own SRO in Burlington, I do think we would have more say-so and more input and more connection, if you will, with that person. Because again, they're gonna be on site. So again, if let's say, for example, our SRO, if we had them and they're at Burlington High School and we have a situation at the elementary school, and they're basically, I don't say they're not our employee because they're still through the Coffee County Sheriff's Department. I think we would have that direct line and say, listen, we need assistance at the elementary, we have a parent situation. We would be able to make that connectivity, that connection, that phone call directly, more so. I do believe.
It says that the sheriff's office will hire them and be their supervisor, but it says assigned activities at any of the schools can be done by the superintendent or his designee.
Like, I think we would have to have some conversations about the contract, which it does say if you want to talk about it. I mean, we probably want to make some changes.
Yeah.
It is a time crunch. Did you see he has to submit in 3 weeks to the commission?
Do the administrators here feel it would be beneficial to have them in your building, I mean, the SRO with the 40 hours? I mean, because you're talking one that's still shared between all the buildings.
Right now.
This is
So what came up that we need another one? If we don't get to call them, and we don't get to do anything, what came up that all of a sudden we need another
We
one?
would probably make it where we would.
Oh, it's still.
I think that since I've been here, we've had 3 different SROs. We've had Jeremy Lynn, we've had Zach Rogers, and now Jessica Sykes. I do feel like that they believe that they're spread pretty thin. That's part of this discussion. And then also, I do think they have somebody that they recently hired that has the potential to have that SRO capability that they feel comfortable with. It would be a really good SRO. So, again.
Would you use them full-time in your
Well,
3 buildings?
I can speak, when I first came 2 SROs ago, that SRO ran the SAFE program, which is seatbelts are for everyone, ran that program. When that SRO left, it just fell. Champions of Character picked it up as part of our community service, and we do that now. But it's things like that. There used to, if you remember way back, they used to have the DARE program. SROs kind of were in charge of the DARE program and things like that. Are those things beneficial? Yes. To me, if you go in that direction, we've got to have some specific things that we line out that they're going to take care of as part of their 40 hours within our district. I think that's vital.
So,
I'm just saying,
Randy must already have
not
those
that many
ideas
hours a
because-
week now, probably combined at 8 hours, I mean, so I.
But could you come up with 40 hours a
I'm
week?
thinking that's a lot, I mean, 40 hours a week, a
Well,
lot.
typically an SRO attends all sporting
Well, I
activities
was
and
gonna
things
say,
like
does
that as
that
well,
count?
so.
If they go to the play and they go to the
Yep.
parent conferences.
So
if they're
they
at
might not
that,
come in
that
till
counts.
2 and then they're on 2
Right, that
to
counts.
10
That would count.
for that day because there's a football
I
game or
think there's some
whatever.
flexibility with their schedule, and that would be those details we'd have to work out.
And I think that like if there's a program, like for example, whatever's in September, if it's wear your seatbelt month, then September we want to make sure you do this. In October it's this, we want you to do, I mean, you would have to set some specific guidelines that, okay, December's this, or whatever, I don't know. I think you would have
It
to.
would be a huge, I say a huge, I mean, we have a large, I mean, it'd be a huge increase because we're basically using the SRO as an emergency type person, if you will, when situations arise. So, yeah, it would be a big increase. And that's, I think, where 243 and 245 are gonna come into play and have their discussions as well. So I think the biggest thing for us right now is that we'll have the discussion at administrative retreat, have some discussions about, do we have a need for that? I'll share back with you. I'll also share back with you what I hear from Russ and Corey at the other county school districts, and then kind of let you start to, again, review this even more so than you already have this document, so.
Does that sound okay?
I have questions for Randy, really. I mean, he says that you can't take the SRO program to the next level with just one SRO. Well, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't either. So if you can explain that to us and say, hey, can you give me 30 grand because I need an extra officer that I can have do anything I want? then maybe we could look into it and not just say, yeah, here's a check. So if you can come in here and tell us what the ideas are, maybe we can be more open to it.
Yeah, the first line of this agreement in B, where it's completely, he says he's under control completely and all you're doing is giving him money, I'm not gonna agree to that. I'll tell you that right now. And I'm not even sure, if you go read B1, that's if that's in there, I'm not agreeing to it. Because we have to have some control of a safety officers roaming our halls and doing stuff, and they can't be undermining or doing stuff to our administrative staff that becomes a conflict because whatever the reason may be, but it has to be something that, I'd love to know what their job description really is. I can't find that in there. Is this in here somewhere where the SRO's description is?
There's no job description, because I don't know if they've had a job description because it's been more of a stopgap type, situation with an SRO.
So those are some good questions.
So,
It's got the duties in there, but it's kind of general.
yeah, not a specific job description, but there are some references
This is
to
his
different
proposal
duties.
job description. What's the current? So what other school districts
What's his plan?
have this type of program around us that have a SRO that's employed by the county that operates within the school?
That's a good question.
I will ask some of the league schools. I know Anderson County has their own police department in their school. So,
Well, we're better off doing that
Maybe
for
more inclined to do that than that,
$28,000
right?
and another piece of this too, and I'm not gonna lie to you, is that because, this is gonna be a little challenging budget year for us because we're gonna spend additional funds. That's gonna be a little bit of a challenge to right now, especially with the unknowns of COVID and budgets and funding in the state. So that may be a part of what 243 and 245 are thinking as well as us. I will do some.
Yeah, so he retires.
And then he retires.
He retires, yeah. We have a new sheriff, yes.
Yep. I'll do some more checking. If you have some more questions for me, just email them to me and I'll work on getting those answers. And then again, share with you what our administrators talked about as well as the other school districts. I shared with you a daycare coordinator job description, and again, this could be for an anticipated opening. That we could put out this daycare director opening. And again, it's anticipated and we'd only hire it if we do get the grant. I don't know if you have any questions on just some of the different duties there that were listed.
July what?
We've been told July 1.
So remind me again, how many people are we planning on employing at our daycare?
All depends on the number of students that we would
Show
have.
up.
So in terms of thinking it, we would
We
have.
have a guess, right, of how many
Right,
number?
right, okay. For example, if we were to max out at, let's say, 60 to 65 kids, we would end up with, let's say, a director, maybe like 3 lead teachers underneath the director, and then the number of support staff we would need based on the age of the kids. So those would be like the instructional aid, para type assistants, the teacher assistants, to meet the ratios that we would need. That would depend upon the age of the kids because there's different ratios for different ages. So an anticipated, I'm gonna say somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 people total.
So the hierarchy, to being top heavy with the director, is that something we need, or is this something?
We have to have a director.
I would say you'd have to have a director because Darla wouldn't be able to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it. You have to have somebody overseeing the whole program. And so, yes,
The
we do have that
licensing.
budgeted in.
It's
Into
not,
that
the
range.
director isn't somebody that's full-time with the
Just
kids, it's making sure all the paperwork and all that.
My question is the degree from an accredited college or university. Are we gonna require any type of degree? I mean, you're just saying.
For a director?
Any degree.
We could, again, we could emphasize that it's an educational degree.
I mean, is it an associate's, a bachelor's? Because it just says a degree from a college.
Yeah.
For the director,
Yeah, on that.
right. But all the other people who are
I think the
directly
one,
with the kids,
the one
Right,
thing,
but yeah,
the
we're
one
talking
thing
about
that
the
you,
job description.
just the job.
Yeah.
So-
Just for the coordinator.
yeah, the one thing that you look at is, for example, if you look at number 3, it says such alternatives to the above qualifications as the board may find appropriate and acceptable and that would be okay for the state, if you will. for that licensure piece. So that's why we put that number 3 in there, because you may have the right person, you may find the right person that's just that person that you want, but you again, do they have to have a degree? Maybe yes, maybe no. It all depends. Can they get the licensure needed to be that daycare director, that daycare coordinator?
But the licensure is based on state stuff.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly. Exactly. We can put a 4-year degree, we can put a 4-year educational degree, we could put that.
I just was wondering what, it just said a degree from a college, so I didn't know if we were gonna have a
If
certain degree or is,
Right.
I don't.
It'd probably be a preference, but if we don't get someone to.
So running
I
a
mean,
daycare,
business and, management
Might be,
for a director, coordinator,
Right.
might be more.
Might be
education.
relevant.
we can't expect you guys to be also, are you gonna have to run the daycare too from a management of the money?
Yes.
Yes.
From the financial
The money.
piece.
Money,
Yes.
Yes, from the
business
financial piece, but as far as the daily operational piece,
Right.
the reports, the filings of information, the
state
supervision of employees,
licensure.
the licensure piece, and the visits, the inspections, and so on and so forth. That's where that director, very much like a principal.
But they'll have nothing to do with the finances.
Well, they'll have input, I mean, as far as, and they'll be a part of that, but
Like
the financial
expenditures.
piece.
So I don't want them to be, so her point to me is being very well made. If you hire someone who has no business, no accounting, no anything, if you spend 3 hours and it takes you 6 hours because you're teaching this person how to do the math,
See that?
we have to really think that over about what we put in there.
That's part of the thing about the, and Selena brought up a good point, and agreed, you go specific. Is business important, or is education important, or is a degree important? Is it a 2 years associate? Maybe, again, I don't know exactly what that person's.
But isn't that what we're here to hash out right now?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're looking at this.
I don't think you want to specify like early childhood degree, because I think you're gonna limit yourself and wish you wouldn't have.
No,
So
and
that's,
I'm
Right.
not saying
Go ahead.
education wise, I'm just
Right.
saying we need to have somebody who knows how to manage people, manage business, handle all those licensing pieces.
I would leave it open, the way that it is.
2-year, 4-year. any
I wouldn't
major.
specify, because I feel like there's a lot sometimes for just work experience as well that might make up for
Yeah,
lack of.
you could find someone that's ran daycare for 35 years,
Exactly.
Right.
We like that.
doesn't really have any formal
They
education.
have a degree
Probably
from the
didn't
school,
do
No,
the
that's
school of
not
hard
real
knocks.
business.
They've got a degree
Yeah.
from experience, like you said.
Yeah.
And the such alternatives
Yeah.
that the board finds acceptable, and we can. Yeah. That shows that we can change it if we want, right?
We have a little flexibility in that statement, yes.
so, what somewhat is a little problematic there, say they find someone that they think is going to work, and then they come to the board for approval, and 3, 4 of us disagree with that person because you knew something about their past. So part of that stuff, when we do that kind of hiring with a high profile type thing that the whole community is gonna know about, is maybe we should have some kind of, I don't know, that if that person's gonna be high profile enough, we should have a little bit more information on a more regular basis or something, so that if you, all the people that have lived in this town for years, and it's somebody from around that you know something about that's really gonna bug you, that information should be early, not at the end.
I think the interview process, the background check that we have, the references, all those things, like with any other employee, I think we have a pretty good list of things to make sure we're finding a high quality person. And so I guess I feel pretty comfortable with that, the hiring process, the list of things that we do.
It also says preferred, not required, so. Like you said, if you found somebody who's had 35 years experience.
Well, this is kind of not really about this, but just a good example on, I mean, it's not my business what you do here, I guess, but When we created our preschool liaison position, we initially said had to have a degree, and we had 0 applicants for a long time with that, and actually we had to go back and amend that job description. So you're probably more correct to leave it less, because you can always weight that if they have a degree, like you can, you know, you can prioritize them in your interview pool based on that. But I know that that was, I mean, we had to lessen the requirement for education for that position, because it just, we weren't getting anybody. And that wasn't a director's job, that was just the liaison.
But I do think you're a key factor in this, because we're moving these kids from there to the elementary.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean,
We did not do that.
So,
and what I'm saying is I don't want to be any part of in charge of it, okay?
well, I was trying to move
direct.
Darla will work with the director.
If you ask me to be director of daycare, I will be submitting a letter.
what, saying okay?
Well, and if we get the grant, I mean, we've already had, Stacy and Selena have already been part of the, basically the committee anyway. You were part of the, you know, when you went and met with the daycares, so maybe they could just.
So with that description, I say we would post an anticipated opening. Again, at least get a feel for how many applicants we might have in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, in hopes that we get good news. Again, if July 1 rolls around and we don't get the grant for some reason, then we don't have any response, we don't have any obligation to hire anybody because we've not made an offer. And of course, it would come back to the board for you guys to approve the person if we did get somebody on board. At least it gives us an idea if there is some interest in an opening and how many applicants that we might have.
So we haven't submitted this yet?
No, that's, again, job description.
Because of COVID, or because
No, for your approval.
we just haven't approved the job description?
Correct.
Well, I say you need to get the job description out there and just be upfront and say, look, we're waiting on our funding. If we get it, great, and if not, and that'll be July 1st, and what's 2 weeks roughly they have to. I mean,
And we may not hire somebody, like for example, we may not hire somebody on July 2, but at least it gets
Right.
the ball rolling that we're gonna have somebody hopefully hired shortly. I'd say middle of July at the latest, hopefully. Because we want to get that person involved in the facility, we want to get that person involved in the play-based curriculum that they're going to want to, you know, incorporate for the early literacy, early numeracy, enriched environment, enriched area activities that we want the kids to be involved in the little, you know. the
So
little
does she
things.
correlate that with you?
Well,
Is the director gonna?
People that are in charge of daycare have to go to state trainings, and I mean, that's what they learn at those trainings, is what you should do with, I mean, I'm not an expert on 0 to 2.
Okay, but it's not coordinated with the
No,
elementary?
there won't necessarily, there'll be.
Once they reach like preschool age, I mean, I'm thinking there will be coordination, because we're gonna wanna funnel those kids into our preschools, and then they can come here for daycare. But this is daycare, not preschool. I mean, so that's, I mean, I think we have to remember that preschool and daycare are 2 different things.
There will be some connection, but it won't necessarily be, I mean, just.
So this will be its independent entity?
Yes.
Like
Dealing
another school building.
Yes,
Another skill school.
you got it.
That's correct.
Yeah, well, I say you get it. Get it up.
So if it's okay, we'll go ahead and use that job description, post an anticipated opening, and start to see where we are with applicants. Okay. Okay. One item that Doug Vanderlyn and I talked about, we did do hazard pay for our drivers and our cooks during COVID-19. We did have a number of, again, technology staff involved with different duties there that could be considered hazard pay. We have I say it's $11, basically $11 a day if you were to prorate the $500 that we gave for hazard pay for our cooks as well as for our drivers that deliver meals. It's an $11 a day, an amount, if you will. And if we were to do something like that, basically we would prorate that number of days that our technology staff were involved in either tech distribution, meeting with the kids to deal with issues, or for parents to deal with issues, getting the items returned back, our technology items. Again, the total amount, I think, is about, yeah, $840 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different possible staff members. I don't know if you have any questions. Either Doug or I could answer.
If we paid some for hazard pay, why don't we pay them all? It's no brainer.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll move that forward as well. And then, I think the last thing is on,
Yeah, how'd that go?
yeah, the June 1 meeting went really well, and James and Stacy, if you want to make any comments, it was just a very good meeting. Feel very good about our county health providers and their common sense approach. They just, again, have a very good common sense approach to how things are moving forward in the county, and then how schools might open back up in August. This is a very good meeting with lots of ideas. I think there will be other meetings in the future based on what happens. So I don't know if James or Stacy, if you have any questions.
So I frankly have talked to several people that, this is the comments they made. If you open the schools like they're saying you're gonna open the schools, and all this distancing and mask and all this stuff, my kid's not coming to school. So I don't know where that's going. I said there's discussions about that. But I know that everybody, at least at that meeting, was all for getting these schools open. I mean, there was no objection to that. I think we have to do what's in, I have my ideas, but I think we have to do with what they say they're going to do. But yeah, I'm sure our funding will be affected if we don't. But overwhelmingly, I think people want to. And part of the discussion we had that I think that key to everybody is early on that we provide lots of education to people on what's going on. Because I mean, as we know, in the hospital and healthcare setting, yeah, we had education, but it was all over the place. I mean, you got all these different agencies providing education and none of them match. And so you're going, oh, what do I do? Do I wear a mask? Do I not wear a mask? Do I social distance? Do I not social distance? So now what's come out of it at the end of the day, for my opinion, is we have social distancing and we have masks. That's it. That's really what has amounted the most to all of this. And you make your decision. And so, but somebody's making the decision for us. And I think we have to push to get this school back open. And my own opinion, I'm not all for the distancing in the classroom. That's just my opinion again. I'm not for that. So get the kids back together. They need that. They truly need that.
So I would love to know what the state's scientific data is that social distancing actually helps prevent children from getting the disease and or becoming otherwise sick.
They have none.
Stacy, you can say it, whatever you want.
They don't have any. They don't.
I mean, there are plenty of countries who have proven already that they never took their kids out of school. And they're reporting 0 cases.
And there were states that didn't take their kids out.
So social distancing, do you guys know the science of social distancing, where it came from? It was a research paper by a 12-year-old 20-some years ago that presented, if you have an outbreak, like the swine flu or something in the past, maybe we should just keep people apart. And our personnel, our people that be, instead of using herd immunity and the process of every other disease we've ever faced, we switched to this social distancing, which a lot of science does not follow. So the bad part is, everybody is somewhat litigious, and if you don't listen and your person's significant other gets COVID, the first thing we do is sue. So it becomes a legal matter instead of a scientific matter. So the frustration for this in school opening, there should be no debate. Schools should be opening in the fall. My opinion, there's 0 debate on that aspect. But there will be because of politics. So do we have to do what we're gonna do because of finances? Probably. But I wish someone would actually use some data, some science, and actually give us rules that make sense. I would love that. And we have enough. The first boat, the first cruise ship that was out in the Pacific Ocean that they quarantined for 14 days had 278 individuals on it. The death rate on the boat was 2.7%. It's a mini study of what we should expect. It's not a whole lot different than the common cold or influenza. Anyway, you guys don't care.
We do, we just learned the powers that were used.
There'll be more information, coming forward. Hopefully it'll be good news as we move forward towards a more normal opening, more normal, school as we knew it before. So, anyway, I think it was a good meeting to get all of the county schools and their board members and the health department.
I mean, the health department wants us to open, right?
They do, oh yeah, very much so.
There wasn't anybody there that
Overwhelming,
didn't want
I
to.
think
the overwhelming,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, the state, yes, they very much so. And then the last thing on my list is county superintendents here at their board meetings tonight. They're going to discuss allowing preschool kids to attend out-of-district schools in the county with their boards this evening. So for example, we've had two scenarios come up with Darla here at the elementary school where preschool kids, parents they were going to send their kids already, elementary, middle, high school kids, to our district. Well, they also each of these two families have preschool kids. They want all the kids to come to the same school district, keep them all together. But it's been kind of a past practice, a gentleman's agreement, a handshake agreement, whatever you want to say with the superintendents in the past, to not allow out-of-district attendance for preschool kids. So they're going to be discussing this at their board meetings tonight. Again, it just came up within the last week. This item just did come up, and so I don't know, what your feelings are. I guess my feelings, just to give you my thought, and maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should let you. I'll let you guys get. Because I have some feelings, but I'll let you guys share.
I replied immediately, and if it were me, I would want my kids to all be at the same school.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what I replied and just said that's my feeling.
Our current standard for the high school kids is they have to want to come, and the other school has to release them.
No.
They can come no
They
matter
can
what.
apply.
Yes.
They apply, we let them in.
They're
Yes.
in all three schools.
The biggest thing in the situation is, for years, it has been the agreement between the Coffee County schools. I mean, it's just a standard statement that we tell people every year, we do not take out of district preschool kids. That's all, it was that way when I was in a different district. We didn't take out, and you guys didn't take ours.
So when you're in Lebo.
When I was in Lebo, and it's been the same way here. Every year we have people ask, and we just always say, we don't take out of district kids. The issue is kind of becoming, we are receiving some requests from a neighboring district due to their circumstances. Here is kind of the particulars that kind of brought this back to light. So I had a family come visit before COVID, inquiring about coming. They came and toured, they told me at that time they had a preschooler and a second grader or, something like that. And I told them, the older kid is not a problem, but I can't, we don't take out district preschool kids currently. I don't know if that will change or not. That was the conversation. And they understood. They were not upset or did not give me any feedback. Well, then last week they called and wanted to turn in their request for out of district. And when I talked to this parent, I had said, well, I'll plan to process this since we've already met and discussed and all that. Well, when they sent one for their preschooler. And I was kind of like, oh, the parent didn't disclose he was going to send that, or I would have probably said, I'm still not sure where we're at on that. And we also have just, because of the expansion of our other program, I'm happy taking all the kids, okay? I think the thing is we have to be careful about, if we take kids because they have siblings in here, are we going to take kids that are on IEPs? I don't want to get us in a litigious situation where it looks like we're discriminating because you don't have an older sibling, and so we're not taking you because you're the first. you know, we're not gonna take you because you're the first kid in your family for preschool, because currently our practice is, you know, last year we may have let one in that had an older sibling, okay? So then, you know, or if we don't take a kid because they're on an IEP, that looks like discrimination. I just think it's getting very gray, and, you know, do we still have this gentleman's agreement that's been the way we've been operating for years? Because, I mean, I think we work with these other school districts, we want to be good neighbors to them and do what's right, but it's creating kind of a conundrum for me, if you will. And I just think we need to figure out what the answer, you know, are we still going with the pat answer that no is no, or yes to some, yes to all? That's kind of where I'm at.
So why did we have that gentleman's agreement?
It's been, well, okay, so I'm gonna go back to when I first became a principal at Lebo. That was the very first year. Our kids from there used to bus to here, special ed preschool kids. There was the bus wreck, and then no more kids came to Burlington. And we all were responsible for figuring out our own preschool. And that was like in August. I mean, we were scrambling. I don't know what created all that. I think the bus wreck had something to do with it. But at that point, then every community was responsible for figuring out whatever their preschool options were going to be. And I think the bigger thing is it probably became about, you know, we at Lebo wanted funding for our special ed kids, and you guys didn't want to be providing the services if we were getting the funding. So it was really probably more at that point when it started about protecting your per pupil funding for those kids. Of course, now all of our kids are funded, there are more funding options and ways for kids to be funded than just IEPs. But, you know, again, I think it's fine for us to say, we'll take all the kids, but I think it's a matter of what is the relationship going to be amongst our neighbors.
We used to bus kids from out of our district into our district.
We used the bus. Lebo kids used to come here for preschool services, special education preschool services. There was no preschool in Lebo.
But we actually bused them, our school
Yeah,
district.
our district bus then.
Your school.
Lebo kids were on a Lebo bus to preschool and back home, yes.
Because
And
we
then
had to-
Lebo had a bus accident, their bus
Yes.
driver, whatever.
And a kid got
And then,
hurt.
so that community said, no more busing.
Well, I think probably the superintendent's board at that time.
We don't
decided-
really know.
Yeah,
The bus accident was the stimulus.
yes. I believe so. I mean, I was just on the front, I became an administrator, but, all of that I know is kind of,
So you said no superintendent's meeting about this?
They're going to have a discussion with their boards, we're going to talk about, but we got two different things to talk about, SRO and one with preschools.
What do you think?
I feel the same way though about the families. I think the families should stay together in the same district, whatever it is, because I just think that makes sense. You're following the same calendar, you're starting to get involved with, I think it makes sense to me that the preschool kids, if they want, now again, that's if parents want to, they submit an application. I think that makes sense to me, but.
What? I think as a parent, my decision, I would hope would be rewarded in a way. So if I wanted to support my local preschool teaching system, I would keep my kids in the local preschool teaching system. If I feel like my kids would be better in yours, hopefully that decision is rewarded because hopefully they research why they're sending them there and there's a rationale there. We give them credit for making that decision. I mean, you know, if I wanted to have two of my kids here and one of them in a preschool where I lived in a smaller town, sometimes that's supporting your local community that you have access to. And that, I have a feeling, was part of this gentleman's agreement, trying to maintain some of that process. But maybe it's getting to the time, finances are getting short for not just us, not just some schools, but all schools are gonna see financial issues. And preschool is gonna be, preschool and daycare are gonna see an effect. So, you know, families are figuring out the cash flow of this and it might be better for them to function that way. So my opinion is we should let them, help them make that decision. And I don't think we should just have a blanket rule that says we don't expect preschool. I think it should be discussed. Darla brought up the point of the appearance of discrimination. I know there's no one here that's gonna discriminate, but, you know, some people, we have people ask to come to our school, and we don't let them for behavioral issues, legal issues, whatever they may be. So if we do this, we have to do the same due diligence that you guys are already doing with the students that we don't bring in, so that if there's an issue, we've done our due diligence, this is why, and this is why. Not getting into all that other stuff, but I'm all for kids coming here.
I do think though that as much as the gentleman's agreement can be met, even moving forward with a change or something, because it could impact any decision that we try to move forward with also. For special ed being a, could be a free party. Just, if we, I'm not saying not to do it if they don't like it, but as much as we can, even if we do it, somehow save the relationship.
Do you think if we open it up, there would be this mass?
I don't think there will be a mass, but I mean, I honestly think that, you know, we're already gaining several from this direction, so for them, probably every one kid is going to make a difference. I mean, it might create a bad situation, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to expect on that. I mean, I know, well, like Crystal, the new college career advocate, they're from that area. I mean, I told her, you know, her youngest is preschool age, and I said, since you work here, we may have some options. And she said, no, we're not gonna bring him. We're gonna wait till he's kindergarten age. That's fine. You know.
Well, it's not solely up to us. The other boards are gonna have a discussion. You're gonna meet with the other superintendents, and if they say absolutely not, and we're gonna start a war if we try to push it.
Right. And I think the direction is from you guys, at least I can share with the other superintendents, and they'll share with me what their boards are thinking too, is to allow the process to at least, you know, where they can apply to be out of district for preschool kids, whether they're kindergarten, 5th graders, 8th graders, or preschool. That what you're telling me is just allow the parents to put in an out of district request, even if they're preschool, and just move forward accordingly based on.
Is there anybody on the board against this? And if so,
I'm sure they're just trying to protect their districts like we would too here. So.
sure, absolutely.
Sure.
You do just have to be careful out there. If we do let some and not others, we just have to be careful.
Well, you do the same vetting that they always do.
Right, that's what.
Yeah, we'd have to do the same. And with preschool kids, it's more difficult because you don't, it's not like a 5th grader.
You can't call them.
It's hard to, you know.
Yeah, there's not much betting.
Previous.
Yeah.
Either they're gonna take a chance or not.
Most likely, you're going to accept them and then find out if it works. Okay.
Cute, are you guys cute?
You have one there, but, board member items.
So, this is more a question than anything. So I've been in Kansas City quite a bit, doing basketball and softball and all that stuff that's opened up with my kids. And it was very interesting to hear what we did. Do you know what they did in Kansas City? The majority of schools gave them their 3rd quarter grades and said, good luck. If you want to study, this stuff will be online. Figure out how to get it. And that was pretty much every kid we talked to on all these basketball tournaments and everything. That's all they did.
There's been stories that we've heard, and James and Stacy at that meeting that we had on June 1 here, I can't remember who mentioned it, but it was somebody, one of the people that were here mentioned Olathe. They had a friend that had he was an elementary student in Olathe. One of the schools there, I don't know if it was a public or private, but it wasn't, let's just say it wasn't what we had.
Well, I think they didn't have enough money to buy a computer for everybody.
Well, and that's, we already had the infrastructure in place.
Right.
I mean,
That just goes to show about some of the things.
Forward-thinking staff.
Who,
Yeah, I think that's part of
who's
it.
gonna be at graduation? That's one.
I am not. Googling.
2 fresher. 3 Lucas West. Yes. Selena? 4. 4, sir. Let's see. We can participate in the food drive. We're gonna bring food in Mr. Drive.
So what day do I get off of?
This month of June.
I'll
I know, dump it off here in June, but you're gonna get a day off.
Because if I can get a day off through the superintendent, I'm gonna get my truck and fill it up with some stuff. We bring frozen food, or does it have to be?
Not frozen.
Non-perishable.
You don't care?
I got a whole freezer.
We'll take it all.
They'll take it all, they'll take it all.
Oh, you'll take frozen?
He might be
Get
good
it
about
out.
it. Jay,
You would,
He looked at Diane.
you would take the
I'll
frozen?
take it all.
Yes.
Yeah, he said, yep. Yep.
I bet you need a lot of food, don't you, or that it's.
Margarita and them opened their freezer.
Yeah, but if it goes to
The truth
God's
is,
storehouse,
our
they
usage
can't
has
take
gone
my
down.
pheasants.
Oh, it has.
State increased food stamps, so people are using those, and our usage has gone down.
Oh, because the state increase was, oh, I didn't know that.
But we'll still take it.
Still.
There will be a dry spell coming, so we'll still take
I'm
it.
sure.
Yeah, July 22nd.
Okay, budget information.
This is just information that we share with you each year. Again, you see the list of information regarding the 2020, 2021 budget planning. It's basically, again, it reiterates information from years past with some adjustments. We do find out on Friday what our insurance rates are going to be. The Kite Insurance, Kansas Education Insurance Trust, Friday you have a Zoom meeting to find out. Hopefully we get good news on our insurance rates. So anyway, but there's just a summary down below, those 3 recommendations, just to make sure that you can support this as Tracy and I begin to we're closing out one budget year and creating a new budget for the next year.
Meal prices.
You're good with all those ones?
Yeah.
Where we.
Recommendations 1, 2, and 3, we just have to agree on, we don't have to make a motion, right?
And they're all the same. They're the-
Yeah, you haven't changed anything.
Yeah, and maybe, okay, so the swimming pool bond is going to be paid off early. Probably
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, so that's great news. We just finalized that information with Scott Jeffers, so that's great. I'm probably letting the cat out of the bag here. But that's
Well, I was just gonna ask you, so.
So that could adjust a little bit with the rec center.
But that has our mill levy,
How
right?
much? How much was it? How much?
It was, our capital outlay levy was 1 extra mil for 5 years. The rec was 1.852. So that will definitely go away, the rec's part, because they can't levy more. So that will drop down to 2 for all taxpayers, but the discussion would have to be on what you guys do with your capital outlay. And
Whether we drop it, it's automatically goes to 4, right?
no, we would have to make that change early, because it's there for 5 years. Or you could drop it down early. a mil.
Or at 5 years, it'll go automatically.
Right, 5 years.
And
will
so
go automatic.
we're early, how much early?
Uh,
Almost,
year.
just right at a year.
Yeah, and once we have this paid off, I'll know, like
Exactly.
how much we saved in interest, and, we plan to publish that, but,
Yay, great job.
so thanks for the great tax levy, for the district, for the county. But help pay that a lot quicker, and we never dropped that mill levy, we told the taxpayers we were doing 1.852, and that's what we did, whether the assessed valuation increased or decreased, and that helped also pay that off.
So,
Wednesday should be.
do we need to make that decision tonight, what we're gonna do, based on accepting this recommendation, or?
No, we can build the budget around that and then change, I mean, we had a discussion in February, kind of already about this, we gave you the
Yes.
Excel spreadsheet on where the revenues and expenditures were for what we spent for capital outlay. And you guys kind of talked about it, but we can make that final before you'll have to pass the budget again.
Right.
Yeah,
In August.
in August.
Oh, that's,
And we'll bring some preliminary numbers in
And then you'll have all those numbers. Okay, so we can agree on this.
Yeah, this is just so we can kind of start planning,
All right.
because our budget workshop should be the end of the month.
I have nothing against, I agree.
Okay, any other questions on budget? No, it's here, good. I should have asked. Okay, meal prices.
There's just some information here that talks a little bit about the recommended adjustments. Again, this is something that Diana Hess and Tracy have dealt with in regards to these adjustments. Again, there's slight increases, but some of the increases are necessary based on food service guidelines, if I'm not mistaken.
The adult ones we're required to increase.
My breakfast hasn't increased in 10 years. Food's went up. Okay, I'll make a motion to increase the adult breakfast price by 5 cents, the adult lunch price by 10 cents, and the student breakfast prices by 15 cents for the 2021 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? Is that enough? Is that enough, Diane?
Who knows what the food price is?
You double that.
Well, the food service fund has to be a non-revenue fund, so we can't make money. And we're pretty good right now. We don't know what prices are gonna do for food, but no district does. And a lot of districts are keeping their prices pretty steady. We chose to keep lunches flat. We could have raised lunches another 10 cents based on the paid lunch equity tool, but we did not because of the time. So she could mid-year raise like all the card prices for some of those items that staff come through and get or students get extra. We could, if we see a need, we could do that. And if we got a dire need, we could raise prices mid-year.
So
You could raise
to
prices.
break even, are we subsidized? Food is, because that doesn't seem like,
No, I mean,
Breakfast
we get
would cost-
federal and state reimbursement. The
For free or
majority,
reduced?
yeah, for free and reduced lunch rates. The majority of the food service fund is paid by federal reimbursement.
Yeah.
That's how
that's
it's
why it
funded.
can stay that low.
That's why we have to keep them up, right, yeah. And she's not losing money on anything. I mean, we're not making money on anything.
Right.
She's not.
They can't make money anyway.
And we were how far below state averages on breakfast? We were quite a bit. Lunches, everybody has to be about pretty much the same, so across the board, across the state, everybody's similar. Adult, you have to charge a minimum amount, which is exactly what we charge. So we really don't have.
We just hadn't raised breakfast forever, so
We didn't have a need at that time.
that's our bid director anyway.
Yeah, she was covering costs.
well, all our food comes from the same vendor?
No.
No?
Several.
We got multiple vendors?
Yes. But we do belong to a co-op, which helps
Those prices?
those prices unless, this COVID changed a little bit, but yeah, who knows?
But the milk bid came in pretty steady, and that was during this time.
What's that?
The milk bid came in,
Yeah.
it was a little under, and that, we just bid that last month, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think the lower you can keep them, it's better for all our kids to be able to afford breakfast and not say they don't want to eat because they can't afford it. I'd rather have them eaten.
That's why we kind of raised breakfast instead of lunch, picked on that.
Oh, with mine up there? Yep. 7-0, right? Okay. Motion passed, 7-0, I said it. Okay, we don't, unless somebody has something, we don't have anything to go back for personnel. So, motion to accept the retirement request of Bruce Harden with regret as transportation mechanic grounds effective June 1st, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? Do you have anything, are we in closed? Motion passed 7-0. We have negotiations meeting this Wednesday from 5:30 to 7:30. I don't know if we're,
That's the
24th.
Yeah.
oh, it's not this week? Oh, wow, okay, no, not till the 24th.
We have
My God,
adjusted,
this week.
we've adjusted that date because we were waiting on some information with the special session.
Do we even have it?
June 3. From what the information that we are gathering is that we can expect funding to be at the levels that the state Supreme Court provided us last year. So that was that 4569 the 4569 base state aid per pupil for next year is what they're recommending to us now. Now again, who knows, depending upon, again, COVID or health-related issues and revenue estimates, it's still, potential is there, who knows, depending upon tax collections. But the information that we've set in on meetings with Dr. Watson, with state superintendents all throughout, and Dale Dennis, as well as the other KSDE people, they are telling us that we can expect funding to be at the levels that we have expected. So that revenue, or not the revenue, that base aid per pupil will be the amount that they're not planning on adjusting that right now. So we pushed negotiations back to June 24th for a couple reasons. One, it allows us to close out the budget year, and we've not really ever closed out a budget year with an anticipation of not having a bonus, a retention bonus. There is no retention bonus this year because if you remember, we took a big swing at salaries last year and committed that money year in and year out. So no retention bonuses this year coming up. So closing out the budget year, we're going to have an idea of where we are financially. And so that'll be over the next 10 days approximately. By June 17, June 18, we're hoping that we'll have more specific numbers. And then I can share with you in the Friday notes some ideas and some numbers that we're looking at in regards to negotiations.
And we don't have insurance rates, right?
We'll have insurance rates Friday.
Friday, right.
So I will have more information. I'll probably put out in my Friday notes to you, I'll probably put out a section adjusted or an informational section on negotiations to give you some ideas.
Yeah, because we have everything else pretty much settled. And we adjusted a supplemental for cross-country.
Music teacher. We adjusted
Oh yeah,
that
music
supplemental.
teacher, calendar, post calendar.
We're down to the financial piece really. That's all we have because we have tentative agreements on everything else. So that I don't really think there's, unless there's some things that you want to discuss privately or confidentially, I'll share with you some information financially and my Friday notes with you guys, with everyone.
Okay, calendar.
This is just the adjusted calendar that we talked about at negotiations, and this will be, again, 6 fewer days with 15 minutes additional time added. Again, the focus of this calendar is hopefully to help give our teachers more time during the school day. An emphasis too would be middle school because it allows them to have an 8-period day, which we've heard about since I've been here. That'll help them with electives, it'll help them, the kids get more options, more opportunities with an 8-period day. So that's what this calendar is representing.
And all buildings are starting at the same time.
Yes, we have had discussions with administrators and directors. Doug Rohr was involved with this. We are going to try something at 7:55 start time and 3:10 dismissal time for everyone. Doug thinks he can do this with the buses. Now, some buses may start out at the elementary school and go to middle high school. Some may start at middle high school and go to the elementary school. But he believes, in talking with his drivers, that we have a plan in place. Everybody's going to start at the same time, so it'll be a little different.
So this is all pending approval, right?
Right.
So when are we gonna publish this on the internet and?
As soon as we approve it, right?
Motion to approve the 2021 calendar as presented. Now we're going to publish.
Second. Even though it's not approved through the teachers?
Any
Well, it's
discussion?
also non-negotiable. We do it at convenience with them. It's not, and
That's not,
we're approving it right now.
Correct.
And they've already said that they agree.
Okay, that's good.
We have always worked together with them on the calendar.
but that's not part of it.
Since I've been here, I should say, always since I've been here.
It's all right. Vote on your computer.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, you guys could have like a little party or something.
Oh my God. Shane, vote.
It don't show up. Oops. I was in the calendar. I was reading the calendar.
Motion passes 7-0. Before we do the debrief, over there on the marker board, someone has put up the proposed graduation plans. Do you want to talk to that, Mr. Reed?
What's that?
The proposed graduation plan.
I got you.
We're talking about the COVID.
And super coach.
You talked about it. Before the meeting started.
No, he talked.
You talked about it. Waited over there for a second.
I already talked about that to you.
Where did I go?
You were sitting right there, and he was sitting right there when he
No,
talked.
I bet I went to get food.
You went to your.
Okay, I'm like,
I was
okay.
here.
I was reading it over. Stacy said, okay, never mind. Everybody else saw me. And
Yeah, you give me a hard time and you didn't listen a lick.
I was eating. Okay. Any debrief?
I got a picnic. Do we need?
I don't know. Are we gonna do it?
Linkage.
Oh, are we gonna do it? Or?
Oh, since we didn't get to it on linkage. Right, we didn't get to it on the linkage agenda, so I didn't know.
What, the picnic?
The picnic? They said yes. Jay, I owe Jay a list.
Yeah.
Jay, you're up.
I promised Jay that I would have a list of things needed if we did a picnic. 12 months ago.
Are we doing the picnic?
They say we are. They said yes. When are we doing it? Thursday?
Well, that, yeah, the calendar is the
Check the
17th
calendar.
for staff
The
back.
newly published. Well, kind
Not
of,
yet.
you're falling on it.
So the 13th. Last year we done the Thursday before the Monday. We really don't like to do it that first week of school because that's, are you starting sports on the 17th?
17th, we most likely will have the parent meeting that evening.
After in-service, the thing, the 10th or 11th?
That's gonna be new staff, only new staff. 13.
That's what we did last year,
August
Thursday before the 13th of August. Okay.
No mask allowed.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you again, everybody. for-
Thank you, yes.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you for the grant. I know I sent a thank you, but it's nice. My mom gave me some.
Lord, I had to go when I was in the bathroom. I mean, in the food. I promise. I did not hear it. Because I started looking at it.